When I was 17, my father called me worthless for wanting to work with my hands instead of going to college. When I turned 18, I proved him wrong in the most expensive way possible. What I did with my $50,000 college fund changed everything and cost me my family. My name is Jackson, and I learned early that love in the Harrison household came with conditions. When other kids were getting hugs for finger paintings, I was getting lectures about my B+ in calculus. B+ isn't good enough for Harvard, my father would say, his cold gray eyes reflecting the same disappointment I'd seen 1,000 times before. You see, I came from money, the kind of family where success was measured by diplomas on the wall and six-figure salaries, not by the calluses on your hands or the sawdust in your hair. My father, Richard Harrison, was the city's most ruthless defense attorney. He'd built an empire winning impossible cases, and everyone knew his name. My mother, Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, ran the cardiac surgery department at Mercy General. Together, they were the perfect power couple. Intelligent, wealthy, and absolutely convinced their only son would follow in their footsteps. The problem? I preferred the smell of wood stain to the scent of old law books. At 12, I discovered woodworking in our garage, and something inside me came alive. While my parents worked until midnight, I spent hours crafting small boxes, learning how wood responded to my touch. Every shaving that curled from my plane, every joint that fit perfectly, it felt like magic. But when I showed them my first creation, a small jewelry box for my mother, she smiled politely and suggested I focus on studying for the LSAT prep course they'd enrolled me in. Woodworking is a nice hobby, dear, but hobbies don't pay for mansions. As the years passed, the divide grew wider. I dominated in shop class while struggling in advanced placement, everything else. My SAT scores were mediocre, but my furniture pieces were extraordinary. Their disappointment was palpable at every parent-teacher conference. Jackson has such potential, they'd tell my woodworking teacher, if only he'd apply himself to subjects that matter. The breaking point came during my senior year. I'd spent 3 months creating a mahogany coffee table with hand-cut dovetail joints and a glass top I'd etched myself. It was my masterpiece, proof that I wasn't just playing with wood, but creating art. I positioned it carefully in our pristine living room, imagining their faces when they finally understood my passion. Instead, I came home from school to find it gone. Not just moved, destroyed. My father had already called the garbage truck. "We need space for your college interview setup," my mother explained calmly, as if she hadn't just thrown away months of my soul. That night, I stood in the garage, staring at the fresh scratches on the concrete where they'd dragged my table, feeling something die inside me. The $50,000 college fund sitting in my trust account suddenly felt less like a gift and more like a chain around my neck. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, realizing that to them, I wasn't their son. I was their project, their investment, their ticket to bragging rights at the country club. And in 18 months, when I turned 18, I'd have a choice to make. One that would change everything. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was in calculus class, pretending to pay attention to derivatives while sketching furniture designs in my notebook margins. My mother picked it up from our mahogany front door, and I knew before she even opened it that my life was about to change. When I walked through that door at 3:47 p.m., the silence hit me like a physical force. Both my parents sat at our dining table, the one I'd always admired for its craftsmanship, ironically, with a stack of papers between them. "Georgetown University," my father announced, sliding the acceptance letter across the polished surface. "Pre-law program. We've already put down the deposit." The words hung in the air like smoke. I hadn't applied to Georgetown. I'd never even visited Georgetown. But there it was, my future decided without me, wrapped in official letterhead and sealed with my parents' ambitions. You applied for me? The words came out strangled, disbelieving. My mother adjusted her pearl necklace, a nervous habit I'd noticed when she delivered bad diagnoses to patients. We know what's best for you, Jackson. You're too young to make such important decisions. That's when I learned the full extent of their betrayal. Not only had they forged my signature on applications, but they'd been telling everyone, relatives, family friends, their colleagues, that I was already planning to be a lawyer. Jackson's following in his father's footsteps, they'd been saying. We're so proud. I was 18 years old, and my life had already been scripted, performed, and applauded by an audience I'd never chosen. I won't go, I said, my voice stronger now. My father's face darkened, that storm cloud expression I'd learned to fear. You will go, son. The papers are signed. Your dorm is reserved. This discussion is over. No. The word exploded from me like a gunshot. I'm not going to college. I'm starting my own business. I'm going to build furniture, real furniture, and make something of myself without your help. What happened next shattered what remained of our family. My father's hand moved faster than I'd ever seen it, the slap echoing through our carefully decorated house. My cheek burned, but not as much as my heart. You ungrateful little bastard, he snarled, his lawyer's composure completely gone. After everything we've given you, every opportunity we've provided, this is how you repay us? My mother stepped between us, but her words cut deeper than his hand ever could. If you don't sign those enrollment papers, Jackson, you're no son of ours. We won't have a woodworking, common laborer, dragging down the Harrison name. I touched my stinging cheek, tasting blood where I'd bitten my tongue. In that moment, standing in our $1,000,000 house with its imported marble and designer everything, I felt completely homeless. The college fund, my inheritance, my supposed future, sat in that account like a ticking bomb. And as I looked at my parents, really looked at them, I realized they didn't see me as their child anymore. I was a failed investment, a broken product that needed to be forced into the right mold. You have 24 hours to come to your senses, my father said, straightening his tie as if straightening his composure. Sign the papers, or leave this house, but know that if you walk away from this opportunity, you walk away from us forever. That night, I lay in bed, my face swollen and my heart shattered, staring at the acceptance letter. Through my window, I could see the garage where I'd once found peace, now locked after my coffee table incident. They'd taken my workspace, dismissed my dreams, and now they wanted to take my very identity. But they'd made one mistake. In their arrogance, they'd forgotten that in just 6 hours, I'd officially control that college fund. And they had absolutely no idea what I planned to do with it. The clock ticked toward midnight, each second bringing me closer to the biggest decision of my life. A decision that would cost me everything I'd known, but might just save everything I'd dreamed of becoming. At 8 a.m. on my 18th birthday, I walked into First National Bank wearing my best suit, the one my mother had bought me for college interviews I'd never attend. The bank manager, Mr. Chen, smiled warmly as he processed my account transfer. "Congratulations on adulthood, Mr. Harrison," he said, not knowing he was witnessing a revolution in a three-piece suit. $50,000, every penny of my college fund, liquidated into a cashier's check that felt both weightless and heavier than the world in my hands. I drove straight past Georgetown University, ironically, to reach my new beginning. The workshop space on Industrial Avenue sat between a plumbing supply store and a mechanic's garage, a far cry from the ivory towers my parents envisioned for me. The owner, Billy, a weather-beaten man with hands like tree roots, asked no questions when I handed him 6 months' rent in cash. "Just one rule, kid," he said, chewing on a toothpick. No noise complaints before 8 a.m. Besides that, make whatever the hell you want. For 3 months, I became a ghost in my own family's house. I'd leave before dawn, work until midnight, and slip back in when they were asleep. They thought I was at some imaginary job, preparing for Georgetown's early orientation. I let them believe it while I built my empire from sawdust and sweat. Every morning meant learning something new. Proper ventilation, supplier relationships, how to price custom work. I studied business plans like my father studied case law with obsessive determination. The workshop became my sanctuary. I built my first client piece, a dining table that took 47 attempts to get right, while watching YouTube videos and reading every furniture-making book I could find. My hands, soft from years of academic focus, developed calluses that became badges of honor. When Mrs. Rodriguez from the corner grocery store commissioned a display case, I almost cried. My first sale, $1,200 that I'd earned with my own hands. But maintaining this double life was killing me. I'd lost 20 pounds, surviving on energy drinks and vending machine sandwiches. Dark circles under my eyes made me look like I was dying slowly, which wasn't far from the truth. I was dying. The version of myself my parents wanted was dying, so the real Jackson could be born. The explosion came on a Tuesday. My mother discovered the bank statements I'd forgotten to throw away. I walked into our kitchen to find both parents waiting. My mother's face white as surgical gauze, my father purple with rage. "You stole from us," my mother whispered. "We trusted you with that money, and you threw it away on some fantasy." "It wasn't stolen," I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "It was mine. For my future. This is my future." What happened next was biblical. My father grabbed my shoulders and slammed me against the refrigerator so hard our family photos scattered across the floor. "You're going to return every penny, and you're going to Georgetown, even if I have to drag you there myself." I pushed him off me harder than I meant to, and he stumbled backward, shock replacing rage on his face. I'd never fought back before. "I'm not going to college," I said. "I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm building something beautiful with my hands, and I'm good at it. I'm really, really good at it." My mother started crying then. The first time I'd seen tears from Dr. Elizabeth Harrison in 15 years. "We're supposed to fly to Georgetown for your orientation in 2 weeks, she sobbed. "What are we going to tell everyone? What are we going to tell them?" That's when it hit me. This was never about my happiness. This was about their image, their story, their perfect family narrative. I was just a character in their play, and I'd gone off script. "Tell them the truth," I said, picking up my keys. "Tell them I chose my own path." "If you walk out that door," my father said, his lawyer voice returning, "don't you dare come back. You're dead to us. Do you understand? Dead." I paused at the threshold, looking back at the woman who'd taught me to tie my shoes and the man who'd thrown baseballs with me in the backyard. "I understand," I whispered. Then I walked out into the world, completely alone for the first time in my life. That night, I slept on the workshop floor, using a drop cloth as a blanket. My phone buzzed with messages from relatives wanting to know what was happening. Word traveled fast in our social circle. By morning, I was officially the family disgrace, the cautionary tale, the son who chose sawdust over a law degree. But as the sun rose through the workshop windows, illuminating my half-finished projects, I felt something I'd never experienced in 18 years of trying to be their perfect son. I felt free. 2 years passed like a fever dream. 2 years of ramen noodles and 16-hour days, of burning my fingers on sanders and learning to price my soul in bored feet. My workshop expanded when Mrs. Chen, a local interior designer, commissioned 3-bedroom sets after seeing my work at the farmer's market. Word spread like wildfire through the design community. "There's this kid," they'd whisper, "who makes furniture like he's channeling the old masters." The phone call came on a Wednesday. "Harrison Custom Woodworks," I answered, wiping polyurethane from my hands. "This is Stephanie Voss from Architectural Digest. We'd like to feature your work in our Rising Artisans issue." I almost dropped the phone. 3 days later, a photographer arrived to capture my workshop, my story, my rise from entitled rich kid to respected craftsman. The article published on a Friday. From Trust Fund to Masterpiece, the Jackson Harrison story. The headline made me wince, but the piece was beautiful. Photos of my workshop, my hands crafting mortise and tenon joints, the custom dining set I'd made for the mayor's wife. They'd interviewed my clients, my suppliers, even Billy, my building's owner. "Never seen a kid work that hard," he'd told them. "Poor boy, looked like a ghost that first year, but he had fire in his eyes." Saturday morning, I was applying the final coat of finish to a red oak bed frame when I heard familiar heels clicking across my concrete floor. I turned, and there she was. My mother, Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, standing in my dusty workshop, wearing her Chanel suit like armor in a war zone. "Jackson," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She'd aged. The stress lines around her eyes were deeper, her perfect posture slightly bent. We saw the article." Behind her stood my father, looking more uncomfortable than I'd ever seen him. Gone was the larger-than-life lawyer who dominated every room. He looked smaller somehow, older, almost ashamed. "I'm not here to apologize," he started, but my mother silenced him with a look. "Yes, you are," she said firmly. Then, turning back to me, "We are." I set down my brush and really looked at them. "How did you find me?" "The article listed your address," my mother said. "Richard, tell him." My father cleared his throat, the sound echoing in the workshop. "The partners at the firm saw the article. They praised your entrepreneurship, said you might have made a better business owner than lawyer, anyway." The words seemed to physically pain him. "Your mother's colleagues at the hospital commissioned a desk from you, through intermediaries. They didn't know you were our son." The irony was delicious. While they'd been telling everyone I was dead to them, I'd been building a reputation that made them look like fools for cutting me off. "We're proud of you," my mother said, and I saw tears threatening her perfectly applied mascara. "We should have been proud of you from the beginning. We should have—" "No," I interrupted. "You were proud of an idea of me, a projection of yourselves. You were never proud of who I actually am." I walked to a covered easel in the corner, pulling away the cloth to reveal what I'd been working on for 2 years. A custom picture frame, hand-carved with intricate Celtic knots, designed to hold a specific 8x10 photo. "Remember this?" I asked, placing it in the frame. It was my graduation photo, the one they'd thrown away when I refused to go to Georgetown. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "You kept it?" "I had to fish it out of the garbage," I said, not without bitterness. "You threw away this photo like you threw away that coffee table. Like you threw away me." The silence stretched like pulled taffy. Finally, my father stepped forward, his voice breaking. "We were wrong. God help us, we were so wrong. We thought we knew what success looked like, what family looked like. We thought love meant controlling your future. And we cost ourselves the most important thing," my mother added. "We cost ourselves our son." I touched the photo in the frame, remembering the boy who'd smiled hopefully at the camera, not knowing what was coming. "I needed to prove to myself that I didn't need your approval to be successful," I said finally. And I did. But I realized something else too. Success without the people you love feels pretty hollow. My father stepped closer to my workbench, running his fingers over the red oak's surface. "This is beautiful," he admitted. I haven't I haven't said that before, have I? About your work? No, I said. You haven't. Your mother and we've spent 2 years in hell. Every dinner party where someone asked about you, every Christmas morning with an empty chair at the table. We told ourselves we did the right thing, but deep down, we knew we'd lost the best thing we ever created, my mother finished. That's when I broke. 2 years of anger, of proving myself, of sleeping on workshop floors, crumbled in an instant. I was their son. They were flawed, controlling, image-obsessed, but they were my parents. And in that moment, surrounded by sawdust and the smell of wood stain, we began the long process of building something new. 6 months later, my parents attended my first gallery showing. 27 pieces, ranging from jewelry boxes to dining room sets, all sold within the first 2 hours. As the crowd moved around my work, I caught my father talking to Mr. Chen, the banker. "My son," he was saying, pride evident in his voice. "He built all of this from scratch. Smartest business decision he ever made. Today, I run the most successful custom furniture business in the city. I also mentor 12 young people who found themselves cut off from families who couldn't see their potential. We meet every Saturday morning in my expanded workshop, and I watch them discover the same thing I did. Sometimes the biggest risk isn't following your dreams, it's staying trapped in someone else's vision of your life. The trust fund is long gone, but what I built from those ashes is worth so much more than $50,000. It's worth everything,